All right. Oh, there we go. All right. Do you want the handheld or do you want my headset? Okay. From the pulpit? Yep, we can do it that way, or I can give you mine. Is the live stream on yet? Yes, it is running. District Pros, it is a joy to have you here at First UMC San Marcos. I'm Pastor Danielle, for those of you who don't know me. Yes, I am married to Pastor Adam. I just get that out of the way. Otherwise, people see us like hold hands or something and they get really creeped out, and like safe gatherings and ethics and right. Anyway, so we have a great presentation today. Jessica Kane's going to present on Southside Community Center, which is about 6 blocks away from here. And then Cindy is going to present on immigration stuff and ways we can be helpful for that. So I'm going to start with an opening prayer, and then we'll let Tracy do what she needs to do and go from there. God, it is a joy to come together as leaders in your church to support and encourage one another in our ministries as we live your kingdom values in this world. So we pray that this time would be a time of encouragement and nurture and support, of resourcing and helping us to live the way of Jesus in this world for your glory. Amen. Okay, come on up.
Well, good morning, y'all. Sorry to be so far away, but I just didn't want to have to hold on to the microphone at the same time that I was trying to speak. First of all, I'd love to say thank you to Danielle and Adam for hosting us today, and for the Methodist Women's Hospitality Group, which is led by Mary Jo Everett, who I understand is a force to be reckoned with. So we are grateful for her help today. Also want to thank Wilson Pruitt and the leadership subcommittee of the district strategy team for planning this event and helping to convene us today. Thank you very much, Wilson. And I also want to make sure that I say thank you to Katie Ruback, who is back there. She's our district director of operations, and she also has been coordinating with Wilson and the NAPS to make sure that all of this can run smoothly, and was here to welcome everyone. So anyway, I'm very grateful for her and for her work in the office as well. I just wanted to take a moment to greet y'all, to say good morning, and to let you know that whether you're online or here in the room, I am so grateful that you've taken the time to come together and gather. I am deeply grateful for the ministry that all of you carry. I know from talking to many of you and also from stalking you on Facebook that you are all showing up in ways that are faithful and thoughtful, and oftentimes unseen or unnoticed. You may not be getting the thanks that you deserve on a regular basis. Ministry these days, as we all know, can seem really heavy. The pace and the tone of our current events is relentless, and that weight doesn't stay outside our church. It comes inside the doors with the people that we gather with in worship, for meetings, in conversations that you're having with your congregations. Leading congregations right now, many of them in quite diverse congregations, can be fraught, and it takes an enormous amount of care and discernment and emotional energy. And I see y'all rising to meet this moment, and I am grateful. I'm thankful for the ways that you continue to lead with integrity and with compassion. One of the things that grounds me right now is the constant reminder of our shared conviction that every single human being has sacred worth. That core belief, I believe, shapes how we as pastors and church professionals show up to be in ministry, especially when the world feels so divided and anxious. This core belief reminds me to take a moment to slow down, to breathe deeply of all things holy, so that I can listen more carefully and respond with humanity and humility and grace, even when the issues, and so many of them are, very complicated. I'm genuinely grateful for all the ways that I see our churches responding. Thank you very much. I am grateful. Y'all are caring for your neighbors and building relationships and meeting the needs of those in your community with tremendous faithfulness and grace. And that work matters so deeply right now. I want you to know that I hold y'all and your congregations in prayer, especially each week as Sunday comes. I carry all of you in my heart. I know that preparing to lead worship and discerning what to preach, how to speak from the pulpit, that takes a lot of care and a lot of discernment, a lot of fear and trembling, likely. It's no small thing to stand in the pulpit right now. And so I pray for you that you would have wisdom and clarity and a steady sense of God's presence for each of you. Today, I am very excited to get to learn together from some people who are doing some very meaningful work out in our communities that I hope will spark ideas for us and offer encouragement. I'm grateful to welcome Lutheran pastor Reverend Jessica Kane, who's going to share about her work, as you heard already, with the Southside Community Center. They do, I can't wait to hear. Jessica said she's so excited she gets to tell us how great they are. And I'm excited too. I'm really excited to hear how great they are. Just from looking at their website, the work that they do is highly impactful and could be a resource that we in our local congregations could point to perhaps if as we encounter needs of those that come to us. I'm also really grateful for Cindy Johnson, who is here today to share with us about something that I know is on all of our hearts. I hear this all the time, that we are all struggling to figure out how to respond appropriately and helpfully to the immigration, thank you, crisis in our communities right now. So Cindy's going to help us think about how congregations can support and accompany those who are our immigrant neighbors and who might need some support and guidance along the way. And so she's got some ideas and best practices to share with us, many of them that have already started to take shape in our conference. So anyway, I hope that today each of you will leave feeling encouraged, and that you'll leave feeling a little bit less alone, and maybe with a few new ideas to carry back to your congregations. Thank you for being here. I know that you're all extremely busy, and I know that the ice storm last week didn't help matters at all. Many of the meetings and ministries that you had planned for last week got pushed to this week, which makes it even more challenging to show up for each other today. So thank you for honoring your connection with one another with your greatest gift, time. I am grateful that we're doing this work together. And I know that Danielle already opened us with a beautiful opening prayer, but I'd also like to just take a moment to ground us and center us in this space. I want to invite you, first of all, to maybe just get really settled in your seats, to put both feet on the floor, maybe rest your hands in your lap. And I want to invite you to take a deep, deep, nourishing breath. And exhale. One more time, breathe in the Holy Spirit and breathe out all that you set aside to be here today. And let us pray. Gracious and faithful God, we pause now to breathe deeply, to arrive fully in this moment, and to remember that you are always and already here. We give you thanks for the people that are gathered in this space and online, for the calls that we carry, the communities we serve, and the many ways that you meet us in the midst of our work. You know the weight that we hold, the questions we bring, and the hope that we cling to. In a world that often feels loud and overwhelming, quiet our hearts enough to hear your voice. Give us wisdom as we learn, humility as we share, and compassion as we reflect on the needs of our neighbors. Open our eyes to see where you are already at work, and our hands can join with you with courage and care. Bless our time together today. Help us to be honest and thoughtful and grounded in your love. Renew our spirits, strengthen our resolve, and remind us that we do not do this work alone. We place this time in your hands, trusting your guidance and your grace. And it's in Christ we dwell. Amen.
Everybody. It is a joy to be with you here, and like Danielle, I'll make my own disclaimer. Yes, I'm married to Pastor Wes Kane. Yes, he's a Methodist at a Lutheran institution, and I am a Lutheran at a United Women in Faith institution, so we're just all over the map here. I am going to give a brief presentation about Southside, about the work that we do, our history and our present, and hopefully a little about our future. And then if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them as well. Can we go to the next slide? So Southside Community Center has been around since 1927, so we are gearing up to celebrate 100 years next year. And during that time, our mission statement has really been very similar. It is to meet the needs of individuals and families in Hays County. So the things that have changed are the area has spread a little bit over those 100 years. It used to be more of a neighborhood, now it's all the way out to the county, and the needs of the community have changed. So with those needs changing, so have we. Southside started as a place where individuals, mostly women, learned basic household skills like sewing and cooking and childcare. And as that was happening, there kind of bubbled up this need for early childhood education. At a time when kindergarten wasn't part of the public schools, Southside became that kindergarten, and our building is built as such. So like many of you with churches that maybe were built in a different century, we have our own fun challenges of wrestling with a building that was built as a school and is now a place where people come for all sorts of needs. So we have lots of fun with that, and every once in a while my executive director will discover something and I'll say, yeah, that's a church right there. That's a church. They came and patched that up, and then we're going to move forward. So my favorite story is when we dug up some pipes that were leaking and they had been patched with roof shingles. Yeah. So thanks, churches of the world. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, thank you. So we have a wealth of services at Southside, but we divide them kind of into two buckets. Everything that you see on the right side of the screen, we call our daily services. So I will talk more in depth about each of these on the next slides, but daily services on one side, and then we have housing programs on the other side. So there's a lot. So with those daily services, we have food, much like a church. Food's at everything. We serve breakfast every day, but Saturday we serve dinner every single day, 365 days a year. We occasionally change the time for a holiday, but we serve at least one meal every single day, all year long. That will continue to be true even toward the end of this week as we close our kitchen for a few days. We will still be feeding breakfast and dinner for the days that we are getting some work done in there. We give out food boxes. We do have a local food bank here. The Hays County Food Bank is located in San Marcos, but sometimes people can't get to it, or they can't get there for their appointments, or they just need food right now. And so we'll make up food boxes from what we have, which also often comes from the food bank, so it works out perfectly. We give out snacks, and then anytime we have an event, there's at least one meal involved. Daily services, belongings related to daily services. We do have lockers on site, so folks can store their belongings on site where they know they're safe. They have a key to the lock, we have a key to the lock, and that's it. Some of those are inside, but most we're trying to get outside so people have 24 access to their belongings, even if we aren't there to let them into the building. And then you probably know that when people don't have an address, it makes everything harder to do. If you are trying to get your driver's license, you have to have an address. If you're trying to get a job, you need an address. There are so many things that require an address, and so we become that address for many people. We collect all the mail, sort it out, and give it out to the right people as they come in asking for it. And then finally, as far as daily services, we have personal care related services. So we do have a shower trailer that came from LaGrange Methodist. I think there was some sort of disaster that they got the trailer for, and then when they were done, it came to us. So we can actually run 4 showers at a time. We do that every day. We do laundry during the work week. And then we also pass out hygiene kits as necessary. For all of those personal care related things, we give out all the supplies that people need. So those hygiene kits have shampoo and conditioner and soap, but also for laundry, we take care of the detergent, we clean and take care of everything for folks. So I've created this category in housing recently because we kind of have 2 buckets even within our housing programs. So this is our specialized housing category. We own and operate a 100-unit affordable senior living community called Sunrise Village. It is just east of 35. It is the cheapest rent in San Marcos by a long shot, and also a place, obviously, where seniors are able to then have a community together. It is independent living, but there are also all sorts of services. Our awesome project manager over there and our administrative assistant do a lot of case management. They help make doctor's appointments, they help with emails, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a really awesome community. And then we are the only, I've said this twice to the commissioners this morning, and I'll say it twice again here today, the only weather shelter in Hays County. This last winter snap, a few other places kind of jumped in as necessary, but we are the only place that opens regularly when it's too hot or too cold. We have kind of our standard for that. It's actually a little bit warmer for cold weather than the county standard is. So we open at 35 degrees or below. The county says we'll open stuff at 32 or below. So we were open for 65 straight hours last weekend, and then every night but Thursday until last night as well. So we're glad to have a little break here. So we also have what is called our Housing Stability Program, and this kind of has tiers of support based on what folks need. So kind of the lowest intervention is our Emergency Assistance Program, and this helps with one-time payment. Folks cannot come back to us for this program for at least 6 months, but the hope is that they don't come back at all, that we help them, and then they don't need any more assistance. It is for bills under $500, but Southside only covers $200 of that at most. We work with a variety of community partners. The Presbyterian Church is one of them, and then some other nonprofit organizations in town help us pool so we can cover bills up to $500 with that program. We also, our newest housing program is called Eviction Prevention. As we were trying to do some stuff on the rehousing side, and we already had our emergency assistance program in place, we realized there's a huge gap between needing, under $500 and needing a home. And so that's where this eviction prevention program comes in. This is for folks who have bills over $500, but generally have been stable up to a certain point. So we can look at their rental history. We can see they paid on time every month for 6 or 12 months or for their entire rental history, and then something happened. And they can tell us what the thing was that happened. It might be a cascade of events, but it's a specific thing. I got sick, my kid got sick, my car broke down, a family member died, I lost my job, I got a new job, but I had 2 weeks where I got 0 income. All of these things lead to people falling behind on their rent. Like many other places, San Marcos is a place where evictions happen very quickly. Landlords would prefer to kick people out and get their money from a new tenant than work with whoever's there. And so our program helps catch people, helps cover up to $2,500 over the course of 1 to 3 months, with the assumption that from then on they are stable. And since we started this program in July, we've helped over 60 families stay in their housing. We are at the point where we're following up with some of those early folks and making sure they're still in their stable housing, and it's looking good. So then finally we have our Bridge Housing program. This is a combination of 2 different programs together to build what this community can actually support and needs at this time. So we have on site a shelter, a house. It has 6 rooms with a shared living and kitchen space, and we house folks there cohort style. So they all come in within about a week of each other, and they all exit within about a week of each other. They can stay for 30 to 60 days. The assumption is that they are either working during that time and saving money or working on the benefits that they deserve but can't get access to so that they have some sort of income. And then they get case management from Southside, and they also get case management from one of our partners. We case manage the situation on site, because as you can imagine, throwing 6 to 12 people together who maybe don't know each other, many of whom have not been in a stable housing situation for a while, gets a little wild. We have found that the single men are more difficult to deal with than the single women with their children. So that's fun. But they stay up to 60 days in that program, and then our partner case manager works with them on housing and then also pays deposits when they move in. So the hope and what's worked so far is that they then pay their first month's rent, and from then on are hopefully good. Much like that, not having an address is difficult. Getting all the money together to get into housing is a lot. So we try to cover all of the additional costs of getting into housing. We cover the moving costs, and then our partner works with them on deposits. So they're literally just paying month-to-month costs. So this is our impact report from 2025. You can see there on the left our daily services. We served 16,000 meals over the course of 2025. We are on track right now to hit at least 18. Just from January alone, we're on track to hit 18,000 meals in 26. 1,000 hygiene kits, 600 showers, 2,200 loads of laundry. All of these things are happening on our property. And in daily services, we serve more than 400 individuals a year. They may use multiple services, but there's 400 unique individuals there. In our housing programs, we served over 600 folks last year, and there is some overlap between daily services and housing services in terms of our folks. We prevented 49 evictions, and we made 266 assistance payments in that emergency assistance situation. We have tons of volunteers. We have a pretty good donor base going that we're trying to increase. And then a big part of our focus over the last couple of years is working with community partners. So I talked about a few of them with that emergency assistance program. We have them across all of our programs. We have folks that come in from Workforce Solutions to help with resume writing and interview skills. We have folks from the health department. We're actually having a fair today. They're going to be there to help register folks for indigent health care. We work with other folks in the city clerk's office. They're going to help with birth certificates and things like that. So we partner together because we know we can't do everything, but we are offering the space for everything to be happening in the city and county, hopefully, over time. So last year, especially, we saw a huge increase in need. Over the course of January to October, we've served more meals each month than the last month, and then we saw a huge increase in November, and it has not gone away. It has only continued that steady increase from the big jump. So we served 23% more meals in December than we did in January. The frequency and amounts that people are asking for rent and utilities are increasing. That was part of the impetus for that eviction prevention program, was that we were denying so many people because their bills were too high for us to cover with emergency assistance. Our temporary shelter program has actually, I should have changed that, a 100-person waiting list, and that is whoever filled out the form. So some of those people represent 2, 3, or 4 if they have a partner or children with them as well. But we can hold 12 adults. And then many partners that we work with, even as we're increasing our ways of working together, we saw a lot of partners lose funding or, like us, use it up so fast that by the end of 2025, they didn't have anything left. There are a lot of federal grants that just disappeared overnight. And so we're trying to do more with less resources in the community. And I just like my note there, we always need financial support. People always ask, what's your greatest need? Money, 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 money.
My life.
Yes. So thank you. I'm open to any questions at this point. Yes?
You said Hayes County. I have churches in Dale and Lockhart, and we get a lot of phone calls about eviction. And I need money to help pay my rent. So do y'all serve Lockhart and Dale also, or you just?
We are just Hayes County, and actually at this point yes, you're Caldwell, yes. So at this point, our eviction prevention program is sponsored exclusively by a grant from San Marcos, and so we can actually only do that program for residents of San Marcos. And a lot of people think they live in San Marcos without actually living here because of ETJs. So that's a really fun conversation to have with our neighbors. Okay, I think Community Action does serve, yes. Community Action would be the place, and they do have some rent and utility assistance as well, and may be able to point you to other places in your county.
So
yes, sir.
The South Side depend directly on federal grants, state grants, or just through your partners that support your temporary?
Yes, so the question is if we depend on federal or state funding. We do not receive any federal or state funding ourselves. We were actually poised to apply in 2025 for federal funding, and then the grant that we would have applied for didn't have a grant cycle in 2025. So it is just our partners who have lost that money. Obviously, we've lost potential, but luckily we didn't lose anything that we already had going for us. We are mostly supported by church-related grants. We get a grant from the United Women in Faith, and then also several churches around the area and some larger grants from denominations. And then foundations, the city invests a good chunk, and then the county somewhat with us as well. So mostly grants and also individual donors, obviously. No, we aren't.
From the live stream asked if you would repeat the
question so they can hear the question too.
Can do. So the question is if they're large foundation grants. At this point, we're mostly working with local organizations, not necessarily just Hays County, but Texas in general. So we do work with the McCoy's Foundation. I'm in the process of applying with Christus for a grant through them. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas just had a grant. So most of it's somewhat local, not on the national stage so far. Yes?
This is amazing. How do you get all the people power you need?
How do we get all the people power? Great question. So we happen to be in a college town, which does help a lot. We have a staff of 10 working on this. About 7 of us are full-time. So, we do a lot each. When I tell people what my job is, I am the volunteer coordinator, the communications person, the development director, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Maybe Todd can remember one of my other jobs. But at another company, it might be 20 people doing this one job, and that's true for everybody in our organization. It's the church, right? I also used to be the communications coordinator and the volunteer coordinator at my church, so I'm used to it. And so that's part of it, is just we have an amazing staff that's willing to jump in wherever. When we were running our winter shelter this last week, everybody came down and helped set up cots each night. We tried to give our chef time off because he stays overnight. So we all cooked dinner last week. That was an exciting experience, and I was exhausted by the end of the week. But there's just a lot of, we're in it as a team. So that's part of it. And then Texas State is a huge influence because every organization needs to do service hours. Every student needs to do service hours. So during the semesters, we have no trouble getting the people power that we need. We have a social work program at Texas State, and one of their introductory classes requires 50 hours of service. So we get about a dozen students every semester who have to be there with us for 50 hours over the course of the semester. We're working on the times when school is not in session. That's a challenge. People will come for specific things. Some people do get attached to wanting to help serve the meals, but our meals all happen during business hours for the most part, so that's a little challenging for some folks. I am working also with the school district, especially the high school. We have a culinary arts program that I'm trying to get them to come in and help with our meals, and their times when they could do that are opposite of when the Texas State students can do things. So it's a big group of people. We've got a lot of churches involved too, obviously. Yeah.
How did you get involved?
How did I get involved? That guy. So Southside received a grant, an ARPA pass-through grant from the city of San Marcos in 2024 that was specifically around housing, and we were able to expand our staff through that, and one of the things that was needed was the communications and volunteer piece and some of that. So I took on a part-time job in 2024, and then I just fell in love with Southside, and so I left my congregation last June, and I've been here full-time since August. Yeah. It's going the other way. I said, Danielle said she's going to make a Methodist out of me, but I'm trying to make Lutherans out of all the Methodists, to be clear. Yes?
Is there a faith component that takes place at Southside?
So the question is there a faith component? We do not run any sort of faith programs there, but there are many churches that are involved, like I said. On the weekends, almost every weekend day, we have a church that brings a meal. And a lot of those churches will offer, I'll sit and pray with folks or with our neighbors. We have one pastor in town who drops by a devotional about once a week, so he has a printed devotional and he just passes it out to whomever wants it. But part of our goal is to be as low barrier as possible, and so anything that seems like we're requiring a faith component means people might not show up. So we're pretty low key about being a faith-based organization. Yes, Diana.
From a historical point of view, I think it's interesting to
Yes, so not a question, but a reminder that the early teachers at Southside, when it was a school, were deaconesses in the Methodist Church. So, yeah, we got a lot of history over there.
And I wanted to say about the faith-based component of it. I mean, it wasn't accidental that we asked the pastor to come to our staff. Because, as Diane said, you know, it was the Methodist women that started Southside out of the old Hays County Jail in 1929 or 1927. And so we are grounded in our faith and how we work this out. And so I would encourage y'all to talk to your UWFs and to talk to your youth programs and to talk to mission volunteers. And you know, you can come to San Marcos and spend a day. You don't need to go to Waco to do like the poverty simulation type of stuff like that. You can come along to Southside and see what we have going on, and then take some of those learnings back, because we are happy to build resources. So if you've got something that you're working with in Lockhart, we'll tell you what we do in Hays and how you might be able to adjust that. We'd be happy to help you all do that. I do want to highlight, our staff does amazing. Right? If we don't, it just gets worse because people become homeless and harm happens. And so we're working with the county and the city on that. But you know, if you, through your organizations, you know, are looking to find a relational partner, not someone to do ministry with, not just, you know, a transactional place where you kind of just rotate. Southside has a long history of working with the Methodist churches in the Austin district, capital, whatever it was before we were.
All right, I think Todd gave a 3-point sermon, so I'm going to try to summarize for the people online. All right, point number 1 was that we are obviously a faith-based institution, and that it's not a mistake that there's a pastor serving at Southside. There's a reason that he spoke to me specifically about that job. 2 is, if you want to partner in ministry with Southside, you are more than welcome to do so. We would love to have you come do mission trips here. I believe that this church has host UM Army, right? So they're all ready to set up and host you here, and you can shower here or there. And I do have some little postcard things over here. The QR code takes you to our Give Help page, which is like the volunteer and donate side. And there is a form at the bottom that you can fill out, and it will come to me, because it all comes to me. And then the third point was that because the ARPA funding that we received from San Marcos is going to be used up by the end of April at the latest, we have incorporated all the programs that we built with it into our budget, and we are about $250,000 short this year. We are obviously doing work on that. I was actually at Commissioner's Court this morning. Todd was there last week. We'll have some folks there later in the month. We're talking with our city council, but that is a need that Southside has to continue doing these programs, and they're super vital to the community. When people don't get eviction prevention, they get evicted, and then they become unhoused, and it is extremely costly for communities to help unhoused folks. So we'd love to help them before they become unhoused for all sorts of reasons, but we do take the cost value to the people who are worrying about their own budgets. Did I get them all, Todd? All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And share on her stuff. We do need a 5-minute break. Okay, 5 minutes. Actually, 5 minutes, not Methodist 5 minutes.
No, but I live in the South. So it's just, and a lot of times it just professional meetings interfere with my other meetings. So really nice to meet you. This evening, I'm going to the regular group. So tomorrow,
Ma'am?
right. I know.
We really need to color code these things.
Hello? Oh, there we go. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Things I choose to do. I don't have to do any of these things. Like I didn't have to read the We've had 7 strangers in our class. 6 Sure. Yeah, it's all good stuff. That's Kathy Treasure at St. John's, and she's the president, you know. There, so I need to tell her about Sal's and they can contribute to that.
So just like at church, you have to stop the passing of the peace or it will go on until lunchtime. I'm going to invite you to find your seats so that we can have our second part of our presentation. I'm just going to take this with me. Come on in and find your seats. All right. All right, so we have Cindy Johnson and Katie Myers and Lizzie Wright who are going to share on immigration stuff for us.
Let's see, I should turn this on. Let's see, there we go.
Only if you want us to hear you.
Okay, I am very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Wilson. Wilson told me to be very, very casual, so I was going to bring my shorts and everything. I'm glad I changed my clothes, Wilson. Now, I'm a teacher. I'm a deaconess, Cindy Andrade Johnson, and I have two wonderful partners that are working on immigration for the conference, and that's Katie Myers, which is an incredible organizer. She organizes us and gets everything done. And then we have Elizabeth Wright, which is a legal part of our team. We try to make it so the team would be really comprehensive and invite everyone. The other thing is, I can't leave my teaching part out. Whenever I do a workshop, it's usually on tables, and I get a big roll of paper, roll it down the table, because people have ideas that come to them while you're presenting. So they can write ideas or things that they're doing, so they can share at the end. And then what we do is, you have your markers and everything, we cut them out. And then that way we could really take in the ideas and use them later on also and present them to each other. Everyone's ideas for this work are so, so important. And sometimes we don't listen to each other because we're in a big, big rush trying to get things done. And that's how I try to fit both things at the same time. But here, just keep your ideas to yourself, and then we'll be popcorning the answers back and forth. Is that okay? Ladies, is that okay? I'm asking you all. Yes? Okay. If they say okay, I'm okay. So we got 45 minutes. The bell rings. We're done. Let's go to the next. This here are responding by accompaniment. We did this workshop before online. And if there's anything that we can improve or change, please let us know, because we want to always be learning how to best do it. The first thing is introductions. We just did that. Second thing is, what do you do? Why do we do this work? This is our agenda, so we're going to talk about that. What is accompaniment, and how accompaniment is in action. And then we'll have questions and answers, but in between this time, instead of in the very end. If you have something, ask us. Next slide. Why? Here, next slide. The reason is what the Bible says. I want to tell you that our whole workshop and presentation came from the Board of Church and Society. They have one already, so we used the outline, and from that outline, it was adapted and improved for our context by Katie and Elizabeth. Then a beautiful job. And in case you need it, we translated it in Spanish. The same outline for your context at your churches. You just get it. And then I cheated, like always, and used the United Methodist Board of Church and Societies, the cards for the different social issues, by using the biblical reason for why we do stuff, by using our stance as a Methodist church, why we do this stuff. We have statistics of why we do this stuff, and of course we have action that they want us to do as a church. We also have other resources I want to talk about. This one, here's a resource of Call to Journey, Call to Welcome, Bible studies already made for us. So that one I just picked up about migration, immigration in the Bible. And then I love this Bible of mine, is the Poverty and Justice Bible, where we find the text. So if we go to the next slide there. In the next slide, we have what the Bible says. We have a lot of, throughout the Bible, it has about caring for our migrant siblings. And there are some of the scriptures, but there's many, many more. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, because I know you all know more than I do. And you could come up, but that would be something to have for your church so they could put it there. The Bible's full of stories of migrants from start to finish. We're commanded to love our neighbor. And God aligned with the less powerful all along, of course. And Jesus was incarnated himself as in his refugee years, ministry and with the marginalized. Next slide. What does our faith say? All of it, and we started this morning that there's dignity in every single human being. That's the straight thing. We also say, our faith says we want justice for our migrants. And then it's our responsibility to care for migrants all along the path. From where they're at home, when they're traveling, and when they're here in their destination. So it's very important. Next slide. What do the facts say? The facts, we've seen them in the news. The facts say, of course, migrants come for economic reasons, political, environmental, social. And I think one that we miss a lot is families. They come because they want to be with their families. And I do this work because of what the Bible's taught me since I was a child here. And then the other one is families. Everyone wants to be with their family. It's a very, very important thing. When it's a hard day, I'm like, this is a mother, this is a child, or this is someone's aunt, some part of a family, and we need to care for them. Next slide. What do you say? What are the things that we say? What is accompaniment? We're going to talk about how we're going to care. One of the big questions whenever we're doing immigration work, they're like, after we see everything, how can I help? That is the biggest thing. What is a way to help? There's many, many ways. So we started with a basic accompaniment of helping, and then we could go through the laws. We can go through different techniques, different capacity building. But the thing is, what can we do? And it's caring for each other. And what does accompaniment mean to you? Any questions at this point? Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Katie.
Let's see if my mic is working. All right, if you can go ahead into the next, we're going to move into the what section. And this may not be information that's new to you personally, but this is information that I have found really helpful in teaching others about the kind of perspective and mindset that we come into accompaniment work with. So I think it's a helpful refresher, even if, again, this is not news to you. So if you'll move to the next slide. So accompaniment is at its core a ministry of presence. And I know that, y'all are folks in ministry here and you know the importance of presence, but that is something that we do have to remind people of. As Cindy mentioned, like right now, everybody really wants to do something. They want to do something, and that sometimes the thing that they need to do is to be with people. That the work that we do is really centered on the migrants. So again, people are coming in, they're feeling a lot of feelings about what's going on. And sometimes you have to kind of work through that before you can be in a place where you can really focus and center the person who you're trying to be with. That it's about friendship and solidarity. Again, it's not about doing a thing, it's not about rescuing people, it's about being their friend. It's walking with them. And it's about relationships first and action second, or maybe third. So we can go on to the next slide. What is it not? It's not about outcomes, it's not about successes, it's not about did I save this person from being deported? Did I intervene and fix what's going on in their life? It's not about enacting our own agendas. There's a lot of people, again, that this is so tied up in their own sense of what the world should be like, that it's hard to separate that out sometimes. Again, not about rescuing, saving people, and it's not about being in control. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of our folks have the hardest time with experiencing is that sense of powerlessness, that when you're sitting with someone in an immigration court, in an ICE check-in, worrying about whether or not they might be detained if they go to HEB, that you do not fundamentally have the power to control the outcome of what's going to happen to them. Next slide. So these are some guidelines that we have adapted for accompaniment. So the first one is to do no harm. It's really important for us to learn to be grounded in what these things mean, to focus on the person that we're trying to be with and what they actually need, because we can do a lot of harm in our efforts to try and be helpful. So we encourage people to go gently, to slow down. Again, everybody wants to do something right now. Right now, the urgency is very high. You know, there are lots of calls to action out there in the world that everybody wants you to make a decision like right now. But going gently is really important. Listening is super important. And a commitment to constantly learning. There's a lot we don't know. Even if you've been doing this a long time, there's a lot you still have to learn. Next slide. Again, that idea that you're going to be in control is something you just have to let go of. You're not going to be able to control the outcome of someone's immigration journey. You're not responsible for the outcome of their journey. You're not responsible for fixing whatever situations they happen to be in. And I think this is really important, that sometimes in our attitude of helping, we take away agency and autonomy from the people that we're trying to help, that they are very capable adult human beings who have the right to make their own decisions, you know, and those may or may not be the decisions we would have made. But part of accompaniment is honoring and respecting their capacities and their autonomy to do those decisions, even if you disagree. Next. I like this graphic. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, with discomfort. Nobody really enjoys this, that this work is hard. It's not, you know, sunshine and puppies all the time. Sometimes it is, but not always. That there aren't easy answers, there aren't easy solutions, and that engaging in this intercultural work, even if you are a person whose cultural background maybe matches the person that you're accompanying, there's things that come up. There's things that you think you know. There's things that you think are analogous in your experience that are not. And for those of us who definitely don't match the cultural background of the person that we're helping, that's even more so. And so there's a lot of work that we do ourselves in challenging our own biases and our own viewpoints about, you know, the way that things should be, the way that things should be done, the way that people should approach problems, challenges, and move through life. Next. And this is to me like the thing that I really want people to understand. You know, again, most people come into accompaniment with this idea that they see suffering in the world and they want to do something to help. And they kind of see themselves as the purveyors of the blessing. And really my experience has been that the blessings I might offer are meager, but the blessings I receive are incalculable. And so I think that it's one of those things that you have to learn how to accept the blessings that are being offered to you, to get yourself in a position where you allow yourself to be blessed by the people that you're accompanying. They have so many gifts, and that God is at work in those relationships. And that's something that I see over and over again, that those places where I put myself in those positions are the places where God is at work. So don't miss out on that part of accompaniment and teaching other people that is part of accompaniment too, that it isn't just a one-way street, that there is a mutuality and a reciprocity that's part of accompaniment. Next. Okay, so before we get to Lizzie's how section, does anybody have any questions, comments on the what? All right, Lizzie?
You're saving them all for me.
It's all right, we'll be back.
I think I'm unmuted. Let me make sure. I have Danielle's former pack. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So before we really dig into how, in the spirit of everything that Katie and Cindy shared, especially kind of those sections on challenge and presence, each community, whether that's a subset of a congregation, each person is really going to have to carefully evaluate what steps make sense in the how, right? This isn't about replicating. This isn't about, oh, I see that that worked great there. I would imagine that's familiar in church work, that we've been in those scenarios before where we feel the pressure to like do the thing because it's happening there. But context and relationship are the absolute foundation of it all, right? Before action. So part of that is also considering not all actions are safe for all people. And you may not know what risk someone else is weighing. So comparisons where you're judging yourself, I mean, I think that happens as much as judging someone else. Judging that you aren't doing enough because of a risk or this or that. We talk about evaluating risk in my own office. Our legal director said, I'll lose my law license before I'm willing to go to jail because I have small children. So I need to be available to my children, but I'll figure out a different career if I have to, right? Is kind of like a risk she's balancing, for instance. But there's also just layers, nuance, learning and learning again as you go, adjusting your expectations, changing the plan. Things that work in one place just won't be working somewhere else. And that is okay. That's okay in the how, okay? So now let's actually dig into the how. First would be some things that you can do to prepare your congregation, your community, your subset that is agitated and looking to get engaged in accompaniment in a particular way. You can host informational sessions. You can have us. You can have recordings of us we have available. You can have, kind of ask about specific sections of what we've talked about. We have these resources that Cindy's shared. There are more resources to dig into studying the UMC social principles so that people, again, feel like this is grounded in more than just the agitation of the moment. I'm sure talking to a room full of professionals, the whole, like, you're getting political comment. Trying to help ground people in the long relationship that we have as a people of faith with the concept of accompaniment, the long relationship as United Methodists, and the way we've spoken about it over decades, right? I like to remind people, JFON started out of UMCOR's work, right? UMCOR was tending to natural disasters, helping people navigate legal services when they're displaced. And then I like to say, and then they realized the immigration system in the United States was a disaster, just not natural. And so there was need directly for that for all people, not just displaced people from natural disasters that UMCOR was engaged with. So this is long relationship work that has built to this point for lots of areas. We can offer, and oh my gosh, yesterday we had our 2-day, I don't even know what day it is, I guess, several days ago, but over the weekend, we had a wonderful presentation, and in my breakout session for it were some wonderful resources lifted up about cultural sensitivity, trauma-informed care, and so we're connecting all these dots for you too and making those resources available on the conference website. I know there have been resources that have been posted in various areas. I know that Amanda's worked to create, and Katie's been resourcing greatly, a very specific immigration-related resource page so that you're not sifting for things. And so we're repopulating that, updating it all the time. And Katie, as Cindy said, is the brilliant organizer behind that. So thank you, Katie. And then here's the other aspect of relationship and having to adjust your expectations and that agitation of wanting to do that Katie started, really pointed toward. That can be damaging if we're not starting with those principles of do no harm and let go of the control. And that is that sometimes the work you do is not to be the most direct. You may not be the most direct in relationship with the most impacted part of the community. You may not be sitting with migrants yourself, but you work with already trusted, already established organizations in order to build relationship there. And that may lead deeper into more face-to-face, but that's one of the things I think I've noticed both when I was leading in a local church and in my time in JFON is like that is a control thing people have to let go of sometimes too, is like, but I want to sit with a person. Well, that sounds like a you thing, right? Like that doesn't sound like a doing God's work thing. That sounds like a you thing then, and that's not what we're here for. You're centering yourself in that moment, not the most impacted in the community. So connecting with trusted organizations is a very good first step to take. And there are lots all throughout our conference, right? Because there's so many different areas of who is tending to what needs. Okay, so moving along in the how, types of migrant accompaniment once you feel more prepared. There's physical accompaniment. This is something churches are often very familiar with, right? Food, shelter, transportation, those tangible things. This is food pantries. This is, like Austin Sanctuary Network has had housing in churches for people who were undocumented, right? This is transportation to ICE check-ins. I know Lyanna Johnson went with someone to their ICE check-in in San Antonio just a couple of weeks ago. This can be advocacy, advocating for legal protections and policy changes that protect migrants. I can tell you, related to our work, the dissolution of sensitive locations, very specific thing that may not have processed before. That was a policy, not a law. Congress gets to make laws. I like to remind people that's like creating the coloring book lines that then the executive branch gets to color in however they want, and they can change it up themselves if they just decide, I want this to look different right now, or under pressure from the people can decide to change how the policy fits between the lines. Congress doesn't do their job much. That's my personal political statement. Which leaves a lot of room for coloring in. And so that's how sensitive locations came to be in the first place. It was just a coloring in of the policy. It wasn't a law. So there is a law proposed by a New Jersey representative going to the floor about creating sensitive locations as law that would bring back religious spaces, schools, and medical centers to being sensitive locations that do not need the presence of ICE and would be restricted from that enforcement by law. Not a policy that someone can say we've changed our mind, but a law passed by Congress. So I'm happy to send you information about how you can advocate for that if you're feeling like getting a little political, as they say. Turns out politics affect the church too, huh? Anyway, emotional accompaniment is, I think, an area we assume is happening a lot as we're doing physical accompaniment, but it's a very important thing to intentionally do. And we all know that we have droughts of counseling services for folks in our congregations across the board, right? People who are needing service, people who are afraid, who maybe culturally don't seek out the resourcing they need for emotional accompaniment from any number of communities. There's all the more pressure, all the more restriction, all the more kind of cultural taboo at times amongst the migrant community. So being able to offer and extend and connect with counseling services, but then leading into our last type of accompaniment we've got here, spiritual support, offering spaces of worship and prayer, offering that in a familiar language, a more familiar language, even a first language. This is powerful stuff, and this is part of what we heard some great witness to from Pastor John Fagans on that webinar that was extending this accompaniment conversation into that this past Saturday. But I know there are others who are offering these spaces. I would say from my own experience working and living in the Rio Grande Valley, I was so blessed by Leo, who would come to the 8:30 service. One time, though, because he wanted his daughter to come along and she didn't want to get up that early, he came to the later service, and I had folks coming to me, and I didn't know who they were talking about. They're like, there's this man, and he just doesn't speak any English, and we keep telling him there's another church down the road that does speak Spanish, and he could go there, but we're not sure we're really communicating well. And I was like, well, first of all, have you offered him coffee yet? Because I'm like also putting on my robe and probably like fixing a toilet, because that's how it goes in small churches, right? Like right before worship starts. And then finally, I come out, I'm like, oh, that's Leo. He goes to our 8:30 service. Leo doesn't speak English, but he comes to our worship service and he tells me every Sunday as he leaves that what matters to him is that it's God's house, that he knows he can pray there and God is listening. He knows that I'm passionate, and so whatever I'm saying is probably passionately about God, even if he can't understand it, and it's safe and it's holy. And that is what made it count. So that is Leo's experience, where he doesn't need to be pushed somewhere else because he's found the space he needed. For others, they want to be able to hear the words. I remember when a young man arrived at our doors during praise band rehearsal, and he and I both were kind of nervous with each other as we tried to figure out what I could do to help. He honestly was like a 14-year-old who'd been dropped off by coyotes down the way. He saw the spire for our church and thought that's a safe place to find to try to get some water and help. Then all of a sudden, as we're in the kitchen so he can get some water and sit, he starts singing along in Spanish to one of the contemporary songs our praise band was singing, and both of us relaxed, right? So spiritual support is something that, again, I think we take for granted. Oh, people are coming and they're going to have Catholic backgrounds, or they're not going to this or that. Offering the space for prayer. And I know so many folks are like, yeah, but I don't have the language. We talked about that some even at the past webinar. Let me tell you, like, people like Pastor John Fagans, Raquel Fagans, others, myself, we're all eager to help unlock the door to that how we can, and give suggestions, have spaces to be in conversation together. But I will say again, from personal experience as a pastor, just getting the Lord's Prayer under my belt so I could say, I'm going to pray in English, but I'm going to finish with these words, or I'm going to start with these words and then I'll continue in English. Again, the power of people hearing something of their own to feel that connection, but then just trusting that the Spirit is at work in that spiritual support. I've said too much about this. You should ask John more about it instead, because he's doing the things. So types of migrant accompaniment, we're going to dig in even more on these slides a little bit to some of this. So what are some of the physical direct things? You're doing some of the physical direct things, right? So I don't have to go through this too much, but we could also talk about this during the Q&A. You can offer up more. You can do a welcome team. You can do English classes, citizenship classes. To be honest, folks don't really need a lawyer. Well, used to not need a lawyer so much at the point of citizenship. That's just a lot of studying to get ready for, right? That's the predominant thing at that point. And so folks don't need to be paying somebody to do that kind of work. That's a huge thing to offer. Offering not just English classes, but also maybe offering space for other languages, for practicing Spanish aloud together, for practicing French aloud together. In the Austin area, we have a lot of Francophone folks from the continent of Africa. And honestly, there's some folks who connect with French from Asia as well. So that may be the connection point rather than finding a very specific dialect you're trying to learn, right? You can create a resource center. That's usually where churches start. That's what you might have the most familiarity with. I think where this comes into play with that kind of connecting with other people is folks don't always know you're a safe place to be. Sometimes church was the thing that caused harm before, right? So this is where partnering to become known as a safe space for these resources and working to make sure people still believe it's a safe space is an important part of the physical and direct services. Next slide. Advocacy. There's a lot here. We can definitely dig into this more. Advocacy can mean a lot of different things to different people. Even within our network, some people think of this as rent assistance, et cetera. We tend to treat it in our area more like advocating for legal changes, advocating for laws to be upheld and observed, right? So this could be, though, in part, you could go to court observations. That's what some people have familiarity with, is ICE check-ins, court presence. Again, John has gone to court with someone, Lyanne has gone to check-ins. There's also, though, the ability to observe online. So being able to be a court observer during WebEx appointments is a whole new layer to this. And the importance of that is also in supporting legal services. Sometimes this is about making the calls or helping to advocate for someone to be able to get their court appointment changed to a WebEx appointment, helping people know that they can do that so that they're not driving to court, but can do it from the safety of home. It's not getting approved all the time, but you can't get it approved if you don't file for it, right? I think a huge part here that people, from this is where I have the deepest experience, right, in the last 7 years. I think people don't realize how much phone call work people have to do to advocate for themselves until you're digging into it. And that's true, for instance, when you are unhoused, right? Like, whatever that particular need is, the amount of pressure and time we make people take to be able to advocate for themselves is huge, and it's exhausting. And that is an incredible way to come alongside people, is to be the one willing to continue to make the phone calls. Because, for instance, a lot of legal service providers don't keep a wait list on purpose because we don't want you thinking, great, I'm on a list, they'll call me when they're ready. We want you to keep finding where there's an opening somewhere when it comes up. And so that is a lot of calling every month and a lot of hearing no. which is exhausting. And so if you can absorb some of the poison of no for someone, right, like by making those calls first to find out, is there availability right now? What is your caseload like? Can you take a case related to XYZ? Or advocating for any number of other assistance that they might need. Being the one to make those calls, to show up if you can, that is huge. And you have folks in your congregations who are retired and can do phone calls, right? They're not millennials who are scared of the phone. Just kidding. I mean, I'm a little scared, but no. Okay, public witness. This is something that we're all jumping into in big ways right now. We're also still having to measure where we can, what feels safe. And it feels, I'm very sorry that I can't answer clearly for you, even with legal information, much less give you advice because I'm not allowed to, I'm not an attorney. But this is where it's hard because it feels like it's unclear what the answer is when someone says, how do we do this safely? And I'm sorry for that, right? Because there's a version of the answer that is, this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's not necessarily how we see it playing out. I think a really important aspect that ties back to the foundations of accompaniment is remembering who has already felt this way in other places, in other situations, and for how long, and how that shapes a community when the rules don't apply to you the same way and you can't take for granted that the rules will be followed. That feels like it's turning some of our lives upside down in a brand new way. That is the upside down world of anxiety other people have lived in, breathed, swum in forever as a community, right? Advocacy can be about joining advocacy networks. That looks any number of different ways, but I can try to make sure we get resourcing up about some of the ones that are popping up throughout Texas and locally. Grassroots leadership is a huge one in the Austin area, but that's limited to a certain area, right? So making sure you're getting connected throughout is important. Next slide, sorry. Spiritual and emotional support, offering multilingual worship services, providing pastoral care, providing congregational care, right? Connecting with all kinds of counseling, celebrating cultural diversity. This is huge, and this is a relationship builder. And John, I think, would say asterisk that one, because he was talking about that some on Saturday. This is something that opens the doors for connection for people. This is something that makes people feel seen, right? When you can celebrate the way, I mean, like, you know what it's like when, like, oh my gosh, you married someone and they open their presents on Christmas Eve? What? Right? Like, so that's just a tiny version of like your little cultural expectation of how the world works or how a holiday works or how a celebration works, right? Imagine when no one is doing what you're used to doing for the celebration of something. Imagine when someone sees that and goes, this is celebratory and special and I love it and thank you for inviting me in, right? It gives people agency too, and you can invite them to lead in that context to show you the way to do it well. And again, that's such an important thing too, to remember, like, this isn't about me imparting to you, this is about me receiving the image of God that you're giving to me that I wouldn't know otherwise, right? Like, sometimes I feel like we act like we understand the body of Christ analogy, right? Like, we know we need all the members, but sometimes the way we actually live that out is like, yeah, no, I've heard of a hand. Let me tell you about eyes, though. They're really cool. And we just keep harping, and we're like, yeah, hands sound great, and I'm sure they're really useful. But let me tell you more about eyes and what they do and how great they are. And my experience with eyes are just amazing. And like, we just keep going there instead of being like, tell me about hands. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine being able to do that, right? So celebrating cultural diversity is a great grounding practice for an entry point to relationship, autonomy, all the things. This is a really big one. And so that can look a lot of different ways in your church to open up the space for that. Next slide. Partnering with organizations, we've talked about this. There are UMC organizations. We serve with legal assistance, Bastrop, Blanco, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, and Williamson counties. We do education and advocacy with everyone, near and far. Done presentations for Kansas, right? Like, so I mean that. We're here as a resource and a partner where we can be. And that might be also you helping us connect to a different type of organization. I've been doing presentations with Foundation Communities in the Austin area, right? Because they're getting ready for their tax program to really ramp up. And so being able to talk with them about how to create safe space has been important. Then here's the other thing. You don't, and because I know numbers matter to us on some level at times, right? And we've talked about how the outcome isn't something we can control. But like the church asks, I mean, y'all just turned in your reports, right? Like your statistical reports were super awkward because you have to be like, I don't know, are they Asian? Like, bleh. It's really weird, right? Tracking engagement doesn't have to look like keeping people's very important information somewhere where the government could come seize it, right? For one thing, you can track information about the migrants you're serving, the community you're serving, without identifying information, without prying into their information. You should gather feedback about what is going well. One of the biggest ways this happens, I know, in food pantries, for instance, is saying what's missing. John's story on Saturday included not just what's missing from the food we offer, right? Which, like in Edinburgh, we got the feedback, well, cooking oil would be really helpful. Like, these things you put together are great, but we really need cooking oil to cook any of the things. But John asked, what's missing that's not necessarily even supposed to go in a grocery bag, right? And that's where people said, I don't have access to a spiritual community, right? So asking questions, gathering feedback, being open to hearing, this isn't actually very helpful in this way, but I come anyway because of XYZ or something is important. And then committing to this with a budget is huge, right? Like, a lot of this becomes ad hoc. This is part of Matthew 25, right? Like, you know, the things we commit to, the things we put our money behind matter. It's not actually, like, the word that gets translated as stranger is the same root that goes to xenophobia, and we don't call that stranger danger, we call that like fear of foreigners, right? So, you know, I have a quibble with James's translation and all that came after it, which was a political action, right? How you choose to translate things. It's welcoming the foreigner, right? When you welcome the foreigner, you're welcoming Jesus. And that, again, is another really good moment to remember that's not about us being like, oh, Jesus, I'm here to help you, but to be like, oh my God, Jesus is in our midst. What can I receive in this moment if I am being attentive to the gift of the person in front of me in this way? Yeah. Yes, there's so much more. My section's really long, y'all. Yeah, so I think we wanted to give you all time to ask a few questions.
I did want to say one thing that, as you know, we've used different words here for the people we're kind of talking about accompanying, but, I think that sometimes we have in our mind a very specific image of the person who needs accompaniment. And the reality is that, the nationalities of people who are, facing immigration enforcement are from everywhere in the world. So they're not all, Spanish-speaking Latin Americans. It might be that in your neighborhood, they're Ukrainians, or they're Afghans, or they're something else. And also that the people who are, feeling this pressure and this threat are not just folks who have a really unstable legal status, but those who have previously thought that they did have a very safe and secure legal status. Resettled refugees, folks with temporary protected status, people who are, married to U.S. citizens who are in the process of adjusting their status, legal permanent residents. So just to say that as you look around and think about, who in my community, is God calling me to notice that it might look very different depending on where you are. So questions, comments that y'all have. We still have a little bit of time before we run up against Cindy's imposed 45-minute deadline. Yes.
What I would like to see, if it's possible, if we develop a database amongst the talents and things that we all could do in this group. Right now, I need help with, an accompaniment case, and I don't know who else can help me. I can help others because I'm an application navigator. I can, my superpower is breaking through
Can I get you to move on to, yeah, I'll repeat the question. Can I get you to move, there's a resource slide. There we go. I know it's tiny. We'll work on getting that in a font you can read. But the question is how do we know, what people know how to do? How do we know who to go to for fill in the blank? Diana's saying, like, I'm really good at doing these kinds of things, but I need help with these other kinds of things. So, this is one of the things that we tried to do. So this is resources. If you go to the next slide, after that, we broke down things by districts too. So these are organizations that already exist within your community. I don't know if you can make that any bigger or not. They don't have to see the south and central side if you can blow it up a little bit. But yeah, so like there are organizations within your area that already do this work. And so as Lizzie said, connecting with them is a really good way because a lot of times they're well tied in. Another one of these spaces where we've been trying to do some of that work is these webinars that we've been hosting about accompaniment. We always include in them a district breakout component to give people the opportunity to collaborate and connect with folks in their district around this topic of accompaniment. We have another one of those scheduled on February 21st and one on March 21st. The other thing is the conference Immigration Resource Hub website is another place that we're starting to build, capacity for holding that kind of information. Now, obviously, sometimes it's difficult, like, in the time that I've been doing immigration work, the number of times people said, if we just had a database, if we just had a list, and the thing is that maintaining that kind of information is extremely challenging, but also kind of sensitive. Like, I may be able to do certain things, but I don't want you to give everyone and their dog my cell phone number. So this is kind of where the relational part of this comes in. You start to know, Cindy's really, really tied in with this thing. Or, if I need a connection that can help me with this, I call this person. So I want to say that we're trying to create some spaces where people can start to build that their own personal knowledge base, and to the extent that it's possible to share these kinds of resources in ways that are public, but also to say that there are limitations to that kind of a solution. Yes, ma'am. May says, do you take personal appointments?
No, because I'm in Dale, Texas, where we have a large population. And so is there time we can probably, maybe with the church, set a meeting, bring and discuss some areas that we've been working on and stuff we want to do?
Yeah, so Cindy says, our time is running short, but also, yes, I think that those are certainly possibilities of that you guys can be in touch with us. Again, if you look on that resource hub, there should be contact information. Abel Vega, yeah, as I say, there's always Lizzie. If you know one of us personally, you're obviously welcome to contact us, but if you contact Abel Vega at the conference office, he can always connect you to one or more of us for that kind of resourcing.
And thank you. Is it on?
I don't know.
Did you turn it back on?
Let's see if I turn
Tech
it
team, is she on?
Am I on? Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
We did this, and whenever we want to present, we want to give more time for people with questions, because we can read a lot of this stuff, and it's really good presentations, but we are available for talking about anything. You can give my phone number to your dog, no problem. We do work a lot with groups. We cannot do the work ourselves, so you got to partner up in our accompaniment. Right now, I go and accompany people almost daily. I'm getting calls from the people that I got a nun doing my work this morning. So those things. Also, we have all those teams over there. They're changing even their names because people are, the government's after you right now. So like, I don't even want to say that name. Team Brownsville is no longer Team Brownsville, but it's still functioning under another name. So we're doing all that work together. They're working with the churches also locally. So like, they got all the Pampers and everything. I'm going with all the Hispanic pastors. We're giving at the colonias, we're giving it to them, and then they give it out to the people. So we partner up with groups, partner up with your attorneys also in your area, because you're asking a lot of questions about how to do these things. The attorneys are having a hard time right now answering these questions. Partner up with them. I'm saying have people from your church volunteer there. You volunteer or send some funds because they need funds. Everyone needs funds. You heard this morning. Partner up so that you can pick up the phone and ask. Because a lot of things, we cannot answer your questions. It's not. What our biggest thing is we can work together and see what's the best answer. We don't have answers. When people come up to me, they compliment one person, I told them, let's postpone. I talked to lawyers, they wanted to go, you do what the person wants to do. They picked up the father for me. And I had a little girl and a mother, I'm working with a mother and a little girl. I mean, but there's stories and stories, but the person decides for themselves. They're adults, they have researched us more than we have on their individual cases or what's going. So it's difficult. And guys, I gotta say goodbye to y'all. Thank you for inviting us.
Tracy Wilson, you have anything closing? See, I knew you had something else.
Is this on? Yes. Okay. I just wanted to let y'all know that Katie has made these flyers that have information about events that are coming up in the coming weeks, and the most urgent one is tomorrow night at Bethany United Methodist Church, Divine Conversations. And so it's from 6 to 8 o'clock tomorrow evening in their fellowship hall. I think that will be a very enriching conversation. So I'd encourage you to be there if you can. Food, free food. All right. And also wanted to make you aware of this. In the past, we've had the My Job workshops. It's, been at a church, half a day workshop. People are too busy to convene in that manner anymore, it seems like. And so our conference lay leader has been working really hard with some lay leaders from other conferences to try to put together some virtual learning opportunities for our laity. And there is a What is My Job webinar coming up this Saturday from 9 to noon, where they're going to be talking about how to be in leadership as a lay leader, on trustees, finance, SPRC, and administrative board. So if you haven't seen this yet, I would encourage you, or at the beginning of the year, you probably have new leaders on board. You may want to give them this QR code so that they can participate on Saturday and learn more about their job. Yep.
Do you know if those are going to be accessible after live?
It seems to me like these days, most webinars and virtual gatherings do get recorded and shared out later, so I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't heard that for sure, but I would be willing to bet that they're going to record it and make it available later. I was curious about that in terms of your conversations tomorrow evening. Are those going to be recorded? No. Okay. All right. And anyway, there's some other really great things here. One of the things that's not on this flyer that I want to make sure is on your radar is Clergy Convocation, which is coming up on Monday and Tuesday, February 23rd and 24th at Alamo Heights United Methodist Church in San Antonio. And so I hope that y'all are making plans to be there as well. I know that the bishop is looking forward to gathering with all of us and talking about what does it mean to be a pastor in this season of the church. So it should be some interesting conversation. Again, thank y'all for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Danielle.
All right, we're going to have Pastor Bonnie close us in prayer if there's no other information. Okay.
So is Ryan. He's in the back. Friends, please join us in an attitude of prayer. God, I thank you so much for this time to be together with colleagues and friends and siblings in Christ. I thank you for this time of learning and growing, to learn about great work that is being done and how we, as your hands and feet, as your children, as those created in your image, can serve and help in the places that we need to grow. God, I ask that you bless each of these individuals and their congregations and their spaces where they serve in ministry, that they are a blessing as they continue to be your hands and feet and to bring your face to the world. Be with us as we go from this place. In your name we pray. Amen.
Does this one have a... No, just... on the table.
Okay.